I had always been the kind of man who believed in commitment, who believed that when you made promises to someone, you kept them. Sarah and I had been married for 5 years, and in those 5 years I had never once doubted her. I loved her with everything I had. I had always thought we were a team, that our bond was unbreakable. I couldn't have been more wrong. It all started with the late nights. At first, it seemed harmless, Sarah working late, being stressed out about her new project at work. But then it started to happen more often. More late nights, more excuses, and more of the same. The stories didn't add up, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that my wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, could be capable of something like this. But then came the day that everything changed. I walked in early from work, hoping to surprise her with a nice dinner. I wanted to show her that I still cared, that despite everything, I hadn't given up. But when I stepped through the door, I froze. There they were, Sarah and Mike, my best friend, the guy I had known since college, tangled together on the couch in a way I had never seen before. Their bodies were intertwined, their faces flushed. At first, I thought I was seeing things, that I was imagining it. But no. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some misinterpretation. They were together. And the worst part? They hadn't even noticed me. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching my whole world come crashing down. When Sarah saw me, her eyes widened, and she quickly scrambled to cover herself. But I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My heart was pounding in my chest, and all I could feel was this overwhelming sense of betrayal. Not just from her, but from Mike too. He was supposed to be my brother, my closest friend. And here he was, in my own home, with my wife. "James," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. I can explain." "Explain?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Explain what? That you've been sleeping with my best friend? That you've been lying to me for months? Explain that, Sarah." Mike finally looked up, his face filled with guilt, but there was no real remorse in his eyes. Only fear. He knew what was coming. "I didn't mean for it to happen, man," he said, his voice unsteady. "It was a mistake. A stupid mistake." "A mistake?" I spat. "You're calling this a mistake? You think that's what this is? You're calling cheating a mistake? You betrayed me, both of you." I could feel the anger building inside me, rising like a tidal wave. I wasn't sure what to do with it, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them walk away from this unscathed. I turned and walked out, not saying another word. There was nothing left to say. They had already destroyed everything. My trust. My life. Everything I had worked for. And they didn't even have the decency to be sorry. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept replaying that moment over and over again, seeing Sarah and Mike together, the shock on their faces when they realized I had caught them. But even as the pain and anger consumed me, there was something else growing inside me. Something darker. Revenge. They needed to pay for what they had done. I couldn't just let it go. Not this time. Sarah tried calling me several times, texting me, pleading for forgiveness. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. How could I? She had shattered everything. I called my lawyer the next day and started the process for a divorce. I wasn't sure how long it would take or how much it would cost, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. She would feel the consequences. But it wasn't just a divorce. No. That was just the beginning. The real punch came a week later, when Sarah showed up at my door with a look on her face that I had never seen before. Desperation. Fear. And something else, guilt. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice quiet. She was standing there, holding the little slip of paper from the doctor's office, her eyes pleading. "James, I don't know what to do. It's not yours. I swear, it's not yours." I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at her, processing what she had just said. She was pregnant, and she was telling me it wasn't mine. "You're pregnant," I repeated, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. And it's not mine? She nodded, her tears falling freely now. I didn't mean for it to happen. I never wanted this. I thought I could control it, but I couldn't. Please, James, you have to believe me. I love you. I've always loved you. This was a mistake. A horrible mistake. I looked at her in disbelief. My wife, who had betrayed me with my best friend, was standing in front of me, claiming that she was pregnant, but it wasn't mine. I didn't know what to feel. Anger. Rage. Disgust. But what I felt the most was the deep, gnawing emptiness. Leave, I said, my voice cold and distant. Just leave. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew one thing: Sarah had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I wasn't going to forgive her. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she had done. She had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. And as for Mike, well, that was a different story. He hadn't just ruined my marriage. He had ruined our friendship. He had destroyed everything I had ever trusted. I wasn't done with him either. Welcome to Whisper's Secrets, where the most intimate mysteries come to life. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you never miss a secret. Now, let's pull back the veil. The moment I told Sarah to leave, a weight lifted off my shoulders. But it wasn't the sense of relief I thought it would be. Instead, I felt a strange, gnawing emptiness. She was gone, but she still had control over my emotions. The worst part? I still cared. I still wanted answers, closure, something, anything to make the ache in my chest go away. But I wasn't going to let her have that power over me anymore. I didn't just want to end things with her. I wanted her to feel what I felt. I wanted her to know that she couldn't just walk away from this without consequences. She had made her choices. Now it was my turn to make mine. I sat at my desk, the legal papers I had started to prepare for the divorce spread out in front of me. But this wasn't just about ending the marriage. No. I was going to make sure Sarah and Mike felt the full weight of their betrayal. The price they had to pay wouldn't just be a broken marriage. It would be everything they had. I started with Sarah. I had always kept a record of everything in our relationship: texts, emails, photos. She never suspected that I was so meticulous. After all, why would she? She trusted me completely. But now, every photo, every message, every document was going to work in my favor. I spent hours going through everything, digging up the evidence I needed to destroy her. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. No, this was bigger. I was going to make sure her reputation was obliterated. Her colleagues would know. Her friends would know. Everyone who had ever trusted her would know exactly who she was. I printed out everything: messages from Jake, the private moments they shared, the lies Sarah had told me. I made copies of everything. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. I had to make sure they both understood the extent of their actions. The next day, I did something I knew would hit them hard. I reached out to her workplace. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly where to hit her. She had worked for years to build a career she was proud of. A career she had thrown away the moment she betrayed me. But I wasn't done yet. I knew her boss personally, and I wasn't going to let Sarah get away with her lies without facing the consequences. I spoke to him directly. I didn't need to go into the details. Just enough for him to know about Sarah's affair with Mike, about the damage it had caused to our marriage, about how everything had unraveled because of her choices. I didn't care if it ruined her career. She deserved it. I could already imagine the look on her face when she found out. The shock. The humiliation. Everything she had worked so hard to build was about to come crashing down, and I was the one pulling the strings. But Sarah wasn't the only one who needed to pay. I needed to make sure Jake felt the sting of what he had done as well. He had betrayed me just as much as she had. He was the one who had helped destroy everything I cared about. He thought he could get away with it, thought he could walk away without any consequences. I wasn't going to let him. I knew where Jake lived. It wasn't difficult to find. I wasn't interested in confrontation, not yet. But I knew how to make him suffer. I started with his job. I had access to a few mutual connections in his company. I didn't need to say much. I just made sure the right people knew about Jake's affair with Sarah. A few whispered words here, a few emails there, and his professional life was hanging by a thread. I wasn't going to give him the luxury of a clean slate. His betrayal would haunt him. He would lose everything. Days passed, and I watched as Sarah's life crumbled. She didn't know it yet, but her career was already sinking. Her friends started distancing themselves, one by one. Her colleagues began questioning her. She couldn't fix it. It was too late. The first blow came when her boss called her in for a meeting. He wasn't the type to fire anyone lightly, but this wasn't just about her work performance. No, this was about her integrity, about the lies she had built her career on. I could feel her panic from the moment I saw her face when she left the office. I knew what had happened. She had been caught. The next blow came soon after. I sent out the emails, the ones I had printed out from our past, our wedding photos, the texts she had sent to Jake, the ones where she told him she loved him. I made sure they reached every person who had ever been close to her. Every single one of her friends, her colleagues, the people she had once trusted, everyone would know. The satisfaction I felt when I saw her face in public, when I saw the humiliation in her eyes, was something I couldn't describe. She had broken me. And now, I had broken her. But then came the moment I had been waiting for. I got a call from Jake. He didn't sound like the confident, arrogant man he had once been. Instead, his voice was shaky, desperate. "James, please," he pleaded. "You've already ruined everything. You've destroyed me. My career, my friendships, all of it. Please, just stop. I'm begging you. You've made your point." I listened to him. But I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't feel anything for him anymore. He had taken so much from me, and now he was begging for mercy? "No," I said firmly, cutting him off. "You don't get to beg for mercy, Jake. You made your choice. Now you're going to live with the consequences. You destroyed my life, and I'm making sure you understand what that feels like. I never meant to hurt you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't matter now," I replied. "You've already done the damage. And now it's my turn." I hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt empty. But it was different from the emptiness I had felt before. It wasn't a hopeless void anymore. It was a sense of completion. I had won. The days that followed were full of tension. Jake and Sarah had been brought low, their lives in tatters. They didn't know it yet, but they would lose everything they had worked for. And there was nothing they could do about it. But I wasn't done. I wasn't going to let them think they had won. I still had one final move to make. I walked into the courthouse a week later. The divorce papers were ready. I had already filed, but now it was time for the final step. I was ready to make it official. The court date was set, and I knew that this would be the end. The end of Sarah's lies. The end of Jake's arrogant sense of entitlement. And the end of my past. When the gavel came down, I wasn't satisfied. I didn't feel relief. I felt something else. Something darker. Satisfaction? Maybe. Closure? Maybe not. It was only a matter of time before Sarah and Jake would feel the full force of my revenge. The groundwork was laid, the rumors spread, and their professional lives were on the verge of collapsing. I had already sent them both the message that there would be no easy way out. No more running. No more pretending like they could walk away unscathed. But there was something more. Something that would take them to their breaking point. I wasn't just looking to destroy their reputations or their careers. That was just the start. What I needed was to make them truly feel what I felt. I needed them to understand the depth of the pain they had caused. And in order to do that, I needed to make them suffer. But it wasn't going to be enough to make them cry. It wasn't enough to just ruin their jobs. No, I wanted them to lose everything. Their dignity. Their status. Their sense of safety. The first strike came against Jake. I had already worked my way into the cracks of his professional life, making sure the rumors about his affair with Sarah were known far and wide. The whispers at work had grown louder. His colleagues began pulling back. His meetings were being cancelled, his presence less and less requested. Jake's once promising career was slowly turning into a disaster. But I needed one more thing to break him. It wasn't enough to destroy his career. I needed to make sure that his personal life was just as shattered. So I dug deeper. I contacted his ex-wife, the woman he'd left when he started this affair. I hadn't expected her to be so willing to talk, but when I told her everything, about Sarah, about the affair, about everything, she was more than willing to help me. She came forward with the damning information that would be the final blow to his personal life. She gave me everything I needed: text messages, photos, intimate conversations, all of it. It wasn't hard to put two and two together. Jake was already broken professionally, but now, he would feel the full weight of his mistakes in the eyes of the people who had once trusted him. The phone call came a few days later. It was his ex-wife, her voice trembling with excitement as she told me everything was in motion. The next morning, I made sure the evidence was leaked. It wasn't just sent to his family or friends. No, I made sure it went to the same people who had given him accolades. To the people who had supported him. His work colleagues. His mentor. Everyone who had ever believed in him. I sat back, waiting. I watched his life collapse. It didn't take long for it all to come crashing down. Within hours of the leak, Jake's phone started ringing off the hook. The messages, the calls, the accusations, he couldn't escape it. He couldn't hide anymore. His career was over. His reputation was in tatters. And I was the one who had made sure of it. As for Sarah, I knew her fall would be a bit more subtle. She had spent years building a life based on lies and manipulation, and now it was time to watch that life fall apart piece by piece. But the biggest blow to her wasn't the professional destruction I'd started. No. The real punch came when I hit her friends. I reached out to everyone who had ever supported her, friends from work, people in our social circle. I sent them everything. The messages, the photos, everything I had gathered. It wasn't about being quiet anymore. It wasn't just about me getting revenge. It was about shame. And as I expected, the fallout was immediate. Sarah's phone blew up with messages, the ones that confirmed what she had been trying to hide for so long. Her colleagues started distancing themselves. Friends stopped calling her. Family members whispered behind her back. But it wasn't enough for me to see her suffer professionally. No. I needed her to feel completely isolated. To feel the weight of her own decisions. So, I pushed further. I made sure everyone knew. Her co-workers. Her best friends. The people she had once considered close. I made sure they all knew about her affair, about the lies she had told. The image she had so carefully crafted was destroyed. And then I took it one step further. I was sitting in my car when I saw Sarah walking down the street. She didn't see me, of course. She was too consumed by her own thoughts, her own regrets. But I wasn't about to let this moment pass by. I got out of the car, walking towards her, knowing this was the final moment. She saw me before I could say anything, and I saw the flash of panic in her eyes. She started to speak, but I raised my hand, cutting her off. "I've already made sure you pay for what you did, Sarah," I said, my voice low and calm, almost too calm. "You wanted to play with my life? Now you know what it feels like to lose everything." Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. "You don't get to cry now. You don't get to beg for forgiveness," I continued, my voice steady, filled with cold fury. "You wanted him. You chose him. And now you've lost everything. Your career. Your reputation. Your friends. Your family. They all know what you've done. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered, tears falling freely now. "I was lonely. I was confused. Please, James, please don't do this. I can't take it." I looked at her, watching as she stood there, broken. There was nothing left of the woman I had married. No apology, No explanation could undo what she had done. "You should have thought of that before you destroyed everything," I said, my voice cold and final. "You've already lost." I turned around and walked away, leaving her standing there. I didn't look back. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Sarah's world crumbled. She tried to salvage what little she had left, but it was too late. The damage had been done. But it wasn't just about them. It was about me. And finally, I realized something. Revenge had never been about getting them to feel bad. It had never been about making them regret what they did. It was about taking control. It was about showing them that there are consequences. And in the end, I had made sure they felt every bit of it. The days dragged on. Each one heavier than the last. I had won, yes. I had exacted my revenge, but as the consequences of my actions settled in, I couldn't shake the emptiness that came with it. I watched as Sarah and Jake's lives continued to fall apart. Sarah's career was ruined, her friendships shattered, and her reputation left in tatters. Jake's professional life had disintegrated. The whispers in the office had become louder, and his social circles were slowly disbanding. I could feel the bitter satisfaction in the back of my mind, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. I had everything I wanted, but I didn't feel whole. There was no sense of peace. No final victory. Only a gnawing, suffocating void where closure should have been. It was a week later when I saw Jake again. I had tried to keep my distance, to focus on my life without them in it. But as I walked down the street, there he was, standing outside a cafe with his head down, holding a cup of coffee. He didn't see me at first, but I couldn't avoid it. I walked toward him, my steps slow, deliberate. He lifted his head when he saw me, and I could see the defeat in his eyes. The man who had once been so full of arrogance, so sure of himself, was now nothing more than a shadow of the man I had once known. His face was drawn, his eyes tired, as if the weight of everything was finally catching up to him. "James," he muttered, his voice hoarse, like it had been months since he last spoke. "I didn't expect to see you. You're lucky I'm even giving you the time of day," I replied, my voice colder than I had intended. He stood there, looking at the ground, almost as if he couldn't bring himself to look me in the eye. I could feel the power shift between us. The man who had betrayed me was now the one who was broken, and I was the one who had the control. The role had reversed, and I couldn't help but feel some twisted sense of satisfaction. "James, I know I've ruined everything," Jake said quietly, his voice shaking. "I know you think I deserve this, and maybe I do. But please, just don't make it worse. Don't make me lose everything." I stepped closer, my gaze steady on him. "You don't get to ask for mercy, Jake. Not after what you did to me." His eyes darted around, like he was searching for an escape, but he knew it was over. He had already lost. "You ruined everything for me. You think I'm just supposed to forgive you? You think you can just walk away from this unscathed?" I said, my voice rising with anger. "You had no idea what you were doing when you slept with my wife. But I'll make sure you understand now. I'll make sure you understand the consequences of your actions." Jake didn't respond. He just stood there, defeated, as if waiting for the inevitable. "You'll never work again. I've made sure of that," I said, my voice sharp. "You'll be nothing but a cautionary tale. No one will trust you anymore. You'll lose everything, just like you took everything from me." With those words, I turned and walked away, leaving him there standing in his shame. I didn't feel pity for him. I didn't feel anything for him anymore. He had made his choices. Now, he would live with them. But it wasn't just Jake. There was still Sarah to deal with. And this was the hardest part. I had broken her professionally, socially, and emotionally. She was shattered. But even with everything I had done, even as I watched her life crumble under the weight of the consequences, there was still a small part of me that wanted to see her suffer more. To watch her beg. To make her understand that nothing she could do would ever make it right. I kept my distance, but I couldn't resist the temptation to check in on her from time to time. I saw her at the coffee shop, sitting alone, Her once confident posture now slumped. Her eyes were dark with exhaustion, her face pale, and her hands shook slightly as she picked at her food. It was like looking at a ghost. Part of me wanted to walk up to her, to say something, anything, to see how she would react. To make her feel that I was the one in control now. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because I knew that as much as I wanted to make her suffer, as much as I wanted her to beg for my forgiveness, there was nothing I could do to fill the hole inside me. She had taken everything from me, and in return I had destroyed her. But there was no satisfaction in it. No peace. The days passed in a blur. The divorce was final, the legal battles over, and yet, I was left standing in the wreckage of everything. I had taken everything from them, and I had destroyed their lives, but now, I felt like I was the one who had lost. The emptiness was consuming me. What was the point of revenge if it didn't heal the wounds? One evening, I sat in my apartment, staring out at the city, wondering if there was a way to move on from all of this. I had been so focused on making them suffer, so focused on getting back at them, that I hadn't stopped to ask myself what I needed. The phone rang again. This time, it was from Sarah. She had sent a message earlier that day, but I hadn't responded. I wasn't sure what she wanted now. After everything, after the destruction, what could she possibly say to me? I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button. But in the end I pressed it. "James," she said, her voice weak. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve it. But I just need to tell you. I'm sorry. For everything. For hurting you. For ruining us. I've lost everything, and I know it's my fault. I just wanted you to know. I'll never forget what we had. I'll never forget you." I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if I wanted to respond. I had taken everything from her, and now she was standing there, on the other end of the phone, broken. She was the one who had been hurt now. But in that moment, I realized something. The revenge hadn't healed me. It hadn't fixed anything. I couldn't keep going like this. I couldn't keep chasing this darkness. "Goodbye, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "Goodbye." I ended the call and sat there in the silence that followed. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel victory. What I felt was the heavy weight of my own choices, the cost of revenge. And for the first time, I realized that maybe the true price of betrayal wasn't just in what I had lost. It was in what I had become. The silence after that phone call with Sarah hung like a cloud in my apartment. I had expected the anger to linger, the satisfaction to wash over me like a tidal wave, but it didn't. I felt hollow. Empty. The thrill of seeing them both suffer had faded, replaced by something else. Regret? No. But something close to it. I had exacted my revenge. I had broken Sarah and Jake. But I had forgotten one important thing. In tearing their lives apart, I had also torn a piece of myself away. I was no longer the man who could forgive. I was no longer the man I used to be. The thing about revenge is that you never realize how much it will consume you. How it will change you. The cold, calculated actions I had taken, each one designed to make them feel the pain I had felt, had eaten away at my soul. And now, I was left with nothing but the aftermath. A few days passed in a blur. I went to work, went through the motions of my everyday life, but it all felt like I was moving through quicksand. Everything was slow, everything was heavy. The weight of what I had done was starting to press down on me, and no matter how hard I tried to push it away, I couldn't escape it. One night, I went for a walk. I didn't know why. Maybe it was because I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was because the emptiness inside me was too much to bear, and I needed to do something to fill it. But as I walked through the quiet streets, the darkened city around me, I found myself standing in front of her apartment building. It was ridiculous. I knew that. I shouldn't be here. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't stop myself from walking into the building, from standing outside her door. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I expected to happen. I had already made it clear to Sarah that I was done. I had already destroyed everything between us. But still, there I was, standing in the hallway, as if I was waiting for something. And then I heard the door open. I didn't need to look up. I knew who it was. Sarah. Her footsteps were hesitant, like she wasn't sure what she was going to say to me. But she didn't need to say anything. Her presence alone was enough. "James," she whispered, her voice almost unrecognizable. "What are you doing here?" I didn't move. I didn't speak right away. I just looked at her, taking in her broken form, the woman who had once been my partner. The woman I had loved. "You've ruined me, James," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "You've taken everything from me. You've destroyed everything. I never meant for any of this to happen." I took a deep breath, my voice steady. "I didn't destroy anything, Sarah. You did that. You made the choice. And now you have to live with it." She took a step forward, her hands trembling as she reached out, but I didn't let her get any closer. I wasn't about to fall for her pleas again. "I can't undo what I've done," she said softly, her tears falling freely now. "I can't change the past. But I can't live with myself knowing I've lost you." I stood there, staring at her, feeling the anger begin to rise again. But it wasn't the same anger I had felt before. It wasn't the anger that drove me to destroy her life. It was something darker. It was the anger at myself. The anger at what I had become. "You don't get to ask for my forgiveness, Sarah," I said quietly. "Not anymore." Her face crumpled, the weight of my words sinking in. She knew it was over. She knew that everything between us was finished. And I had made sure of it. I turned and walked away, not looking back. I wasn't the man I had been before. I wasn't the man who had forgiven. I was the man who had taken control. The man who had made them both pay for their betrayal. But now, as I walked away from her apartment, I realized that I wasn't sure what I had left. I had made them suffer, but I had also lost myself in the process. The man who had once believed in love and second chances was gone. And all that was left was the hollow shell of someone who had let revenge consume him. The next few days were filled with meetings, with finalizing the divorce, with making sure the damage was done. The papers were signed. The separation official. And yet, there was nothing to celebrate. No sense of victory. I had destroyed Sarah and Jake, but I had also destroyed myself in the process. And then, everything shifted. I received a call from my lawyer. It was about Sarah's final move. She had filed for a restraining order against me. It was petty, it was vindictive, but she had the power to do it. I had made her feel like she had nothing left, and now she was trying to regain control in the only way she could. Her lawyer threatened me with legal action if I didn't stop spreading rumors, if I didn't stop making her life worse. But I didn't care. I had already made sure that her reputation was destroyed. She was done. There was no going back for her. But then, it hit me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It had become about something else, about power. And I realized something important. As long as I kept fighting, as long as I kept going down this path, I was just as trapped as she was. I was consumed by the need to win, to make her pay. But at what cost? I had taken control of everything in my life. I had made Sarah and Jake pay for what they had done. But now I had to ask myself one question: what was the price of all this? The police came for Sarah. I didn't expect it, but it wasn't surprising. She was trying to make me pay for what I had done to her. The harassment, the emotional distress. She was pushing back, trying to make me feel the consequences of my actions. But in the end, I knew this wasn't over. The price of betrayal would be high. The price of my own choices would be even higher. Thank you for being with us on Whisper's Secrets. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, drop a comment, and be sure to subscribe. The secrets are waiting to be revealed. See you soon.